Hello students, my name is Emma Reed. I am an 8th grade math teacher, and today we are continuing Unit 8, the Pythagorean Theorem and Irrational Numbers. And our topic for today is cube roots, Part A. And our focus question is, how can we determine which whole numbers a cube root is between? Now we'll move right into our introduction/launch on slide A. On slide A, we are answering the question, true or false, for each equation. So we need to determine if each equation in the table is true or false. So I'm going to read all of the equations out loud to you, and I just want to clarify something about the notation here. You'll see that all of these equations include parentheses. In math, parentheses are a grouping symbol, which means that whenever you see parentheses, they're put there to show that we're keeping everything together. So for example, in the first equation where we have the cube root of 5 raised to the third power, those parentheses are showing that we're raising the cube root of 5 to the third power. That's just a way of us clarifying. We're not saying we're taking the cube root of 5 to the third power. We're saying all of the stuff in the parentheses is being raised to the third power. So I'm going to read this as the cube root of 5 to the third power, but pay attention to where our parentheses are, because that shows us exactly what the base is that's being raised to the third power in that case. So our first equation is the cube root of 5 to the third power equals 5. Then we have the cube root of 27 to the third power equals 3. 7 equals the cube root of 7 to the third power. The cube root of 10 to the third power equals 1000. And our final equation is the cube root of 64 equals 2 to the third power. So decide whether each of these equations are true or false and give your reasoning. Once you've had enough time to think through slide A and notice any patterns in which equations are true, we'll move on together to our Explore section, slide B. And on slide B, we have two different questions. First, we have, which two integers is the cube root of 5 between? Explain your reasoning. And then we have another question, which two integers is the cube root of 23 between? And explain your reasoning there as well. So pause and think about these questions. Explain your reasoning in the blue. And once you've had enough time to think, I'm going to show you two student responses, and you're going to decide which student you think is correct and why. All right, so here we have two different student responses to slide B of our Explore section. And let's read both students' thinking and decide whose answer is more reasonable. Does one of these students have the same or similar reasoning that you have? Does the student agree on the answer? Maybe explain their reasoning a little differently. Basically, we're going to look at these two students and see how thinking about their thinking can enhance our thinking. So student A answered the first question and said that the cube root of 5 must be between 1 and 2. I know this because 1 cubed is 1 and 2 cubed is 8. Since 5 is between those products, the cube root must be between 1 and 2. Now let's look at student B's thinking. Student B says the cube root of 23 must be between 4 and 5. I know this because 5 squared is 25 and 4 squared is 16. Since 23 is between 16 and 25, the cube root must be between 4 and 5. So take a moment. What are the similarities and differences between student A and student B's thinking? Do you agree with one student or the other? And for the student you think is incorrect, what is incorrect about their thinking? And how can it help you double check to make sure that you don't make the same mistake? Once you've had enough time to think about student A and student B and see how that might change or reinforce your answer, we'll move ahead to slide C. On slide C, we have two very similar questions. On the left, we have which two integers is the cube root of 81 between? Explain your reasoning. And on the right, we have which two integers is the cube root of 999 between? Explain your reasoning. I encourage you to think about the two students that we looked at before, as well as our warm-up in answering this question. Pause and think. And when you're ready, we'll move ahead to slide D. On slide D, you're going to come up with what advice would you give to a fellow student on how to find the cube root of a number? So if one of your friends were really struggling to understand what you worked on today, what would you do to help them understand? So think back to a time when you learned something from someone else and they really helped you get that concept. They were very clear, and try to do that same thing for someone else on this page. So make sure your steps are clear to any reader. And I also encourage you to use an example that you worked on today that you feel extra confident about from slides B or C. And when you're ready, pause to think and write your answer here. And when you're ready, we'll move ahead to our summarize section. For our summarize section, we're going to record our response to the focus question, which was how can we determine which whole numbers a cube root is between? So you might want to repeat some of the ideas you put on slide D here, since slide D was really asking us to teach someone else how to determine which whole numbers a cube root is between. On the right, you can record any notes you want to remember for the future. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this was helpful practice for determining which whole numbers a cube root is between, and enjoy the rest of your day.